Yo, what's up? So Ableton 12.1 was announced. One of the biggest point updates I can remember, specifically because the new auto shift, which is Ableton's auto-tune or real-time pitch correction. Today we're going to check out how to get a good solid sound with minimum amount of latency in your headphones for the studio when you just want to improvise or working with other vocalists, or because it's very low latency, it's really great for the stage. Huge thanks to Ableton for sponsoring this video. Let's check it out. Okay, so here is I made a rack as an example. It's a free download, and it's a very complex rack, so we'll go over it, but first, let's see what it does. I'm gonna let it run one time without the effect. We'll hear my horrible voice. We'll turn it on and hear what it does, and I'm gonna just mumble, improvise some melodies. Let's arm the track with C. Let's go.
She got me, I got me going, go. Why you gonna get me on the floor? Why you gonna let me on the mo? She got me, I got me going, get me on the go. She got me, I got me going, cool. Why you gonna get me going, let me on the floor? I've been going late, she been going go. She been going late, she been going full.
I've been going like I do. She got me and she got you. Why you do, why you do? She got me, she got you, she got you.
So let's talk about a few fundamentals setting up your vocal sound for recording. Let's first of all check out just the first chain here in the main rack, which is our main voice. This is, let's say, Ahmed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
So we can hear there's some echo, there's some reverb, and of course all the compression and EQ. First effect that I put, and it's optional, is a gate. The reason is just it's gonna turn off the mic whenever I'm not singing. So I don't want any signal, any noise when it's not happening. You don't have to do it if you have a quiet environment and a quiet microphone, but I'm going to put it there and let's just fold it. Okay, nice. Now the first chain here, of course, we have the auto shift, and all the auto shifts have the scale mode enabled. I highly recommend doing that. This will follow the global key that you set right here, the global scale. And now in Ableton 12.1, also audio clips can have this scale. So you can just put it there, and when you click on it, all the auto shifts will jump to that key. I have here another loop, and you can see F sharp minor. If I click on it, we can see the global key is switching, and also the auto shifts on all of them. We have a bunch of them here. So this is extremely useful if you're just working with yourself or with vocalists and you want to jump around between different ideas. Just set the key and the auto shifts will follow. Amazing. Okay, now auto shift should be your first effect besides the technical stuff like the gate. And after that, of course, we still need all the classic compression, EQ, exciter, de-essing, all those things for the vocals. Now, Ableton does come with the pack voice box, which is awesome. Let's open it up. Audio effect rack, basic vocal effect racks, basic mixing. I took those first two right here and added them. Here they are. Now it does come with some reverb, so I turn it down. I want to add my own reverb, especially as we're combining more than one layer of vocal in this specific rack. Nice. So this will just give me a more solid, strong sound. Let me turn off all the effects here, except the auto shift. Let's solo the solo. Let's arm it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So as we can hear, it boosts it a lot. And you can mess around with your own effects, but it does need it. I would recommend always putting the auto shift first, unless you need to clean up the sound in some way, like I do with the gate. Okay, awesome. Then on my solo voice, this is where I put my reverb delay, kind of space echo, because I don't want it on the other layers. But if we listen to this,
yeah,
we have that. Awesome. Now, this is all it is for this layer, and that's all it can be for your vocal, just like a gate or even not, auto shift and some compressors, EQ, just to get your plugins, just to get your vocal nice and solid. After that, I have some effects that we'll talk about later that are just bringing everything together, but I will turn on the glue compressor right here at the end, just to make sure it controls the volume as we start adding more layers. Sweet. Another awesome feature of the auto shift is the built-in vibrato. Now I mapped the amount to my mod wheel right here. Now let's arm the track, let's check it out.
Yeah. Whoa.
Vibrato. Okay, awesome. Next, let's go to the harmony. Let's click on that, let's solo that. Now this is using the auto shift as a harmonizer, super awesome feature, kind of like a vocoder, but sounds a bit more natural and not so robotic, although you can make it sound robotic. So we got to open up this MIDI in, turn on the MIDI, and tell it where to listen to. And I have this other track, with just an empty MIDI track right here that is monitor input, so I can always play, it's always listening to my keyboard. You can simply just arm it as well. You can hold command and arm both of them if you want, or just have it on monitor in. Now, one tip is I would recommend putting it on pre-effects, just so it doesn't matter if it's soloed or not. Because by default, it's on post-mixer, and when you solo, it would stop listening to MIDI. Okay, so I would recommend putting it on pre-effects so we can get still the MIDI even if it's soloed. Awesome. I did switch it to poly so we can play harmony. Mono is just going to play one out at a time. And now if I arm the track, sing something, I'm going to play something on my MIDI keyboard here, we can also hear the harmony. Let's hit arm it.
Like a vocoder.
Once you set up your MIDI, then we can start adding some more effects here. I have a stereo expander, some reverb, and some chorus. Let's listen with this. Now, you can also add more vocoders to it if you want. For example, we have the Spectral Resonator, which is a great vocoder. And if you want to make it a bit more robotic sounding, let's also do here MIDI, listen to the empty MIDI track, MIDI harmony, pre-effects, polyphonic, not all the way dry, unison, less unison amount. Let's check this out without. With. And we can do a bunch of stuff here. So you can combine the auto shift harmonizer with other effects to get a different sound. Sweet, let's delete that. We don't need that. Amazing. So the harmonizer is always there. If you do use this rack, you just gotta open up the rack, go to the harmony chain, and make sure that you set up an empty MIDI track so you can play it. Now let's check out the two other layers. We have wide left and wide right here. They're both hard panned. Let's solo both of them. And these are two voices that just going to expand the stereo image. You can add them right here with the macro if you want, just the volume. But let's just check just them out. Let's arm the track. Yeah. Whoa, 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 whoa. And with the solo voice. Yeah. Whoa, whoa. Okay, awesome. Now let's check out a few things here between the wide left and wide right. First of all, I changed the format just a tiny bit differently because we want to create as many small differences as possible to accentuate the width of these two wide panned, hard panned voices. So we changed the format, which is absolutely amazing. I also, as you heard in the example, used it on the main solo auto shift, and it's mapped to the macro right here, just so I can do like a voice changer. It's essentially a real-time voice changer, which is awesome. The format will bring the tone higher or lower without changing the pitch. And I was waiting for a solid format shifter in Ableton, and this absolutely it. Another thing I did is I kind of detuned them just a tiny bit. And you can see it's also being moved. It's being randomized right here by this LFO. Each one have an LFO here to just randomize a tiny bit the sense. But also, I wanted them to be slightly different in timing between the left and right. So I added this align delay, and this is also being randomized on each one, just to slightly change the timing of each voice, each left and right voice. Nice. And finally, to add another difference, right here under the LFO tab, I also added a randomizer, just a tiny bit to the formats to ever kind of move them just slightly to create differences. And that's our wide layer. It also have those racks, just EQ and compression and stuff. Sweet. Let's check out the low voice, which is very similar. It's not panned hard left and hard right, just halfway. But this one, we took down the pitch all the way down, so we get this very low octave. Let's check it out.
Yeah, this is me. Oh, let's take also both sides of the stereo spectrum.
So that's super cool because, again, real-time voice changer. I did add some format follow here on each one, and that will try to change the formats with the pitch itself. So you go down, the formats also go down, and vice versa. Also super cool that it can do it in real time, which opens up a lot of different applications, not only for singing, okay, which is super fun. Now, to kind of bring and glue all of these layers together, I also added these global effects here that are after this main rack. Let's fold this main rack. After this main rack, we have all these effects like a reverb on everything, just turning down the volume, EQ, and saturator. As you can see, it's also been kind of redesigned, and we got some new features here with 12.1. And finally, the glue compressor that we had before. Nice. And this is the rack. Now, the idea here of designing this rack is that we keep it 0 samples latency. And to do that, I had to go on each effect and make sure that it's 0 latency and do something to change it to 0. For example, the gate by default have a look ahead of 1.5 milliseconds, turn it to 0. As you probably saw in the auto shifts, they have live mode. Here we have the representation of the latency, although we also have it in the command line. But without the live mode is 32 milliseconds, and accumulating with all those auto shifts, that's a lot. So turn on the live mode, as well as with the EQs, I'm going to turn off the oversampling, compressor, turn off oversampling, and anything that might introduce latency for that effect. So this is how we got into 0 samples latency, and that's why it's so great to just throw something like this, a rack like this, doesn't have to be exactly that, and just jump and start recording stuff. Now, just quickly over the macros, solo is just the main voice. That's the white voices we talked about. This is the smooth time of the main solo, how much hard tune, like auto-tune all the way up, T-Pain, or something more natural that you hear your own kind of vibrato and gliding between notes and stuff like that. Format to real-time, kind of change the tone, we try changing the pitch, the MIDI harmony volume, the low octave volume, and the volumes of the delay and reverb. You can start off this rack or you can make your own from scratch, but I would highly recommend having something like that, a tool like this, that is just very easy to get a solid vocal sound and start recording, start writing, improvising, whatever you need, instead of setting it up every time from scratch. It's quite CPU intensive, but we have new computers. I'm sure it can handle it, especially if you focus mostly on vocals for that specific case. Sweet. Hope you enjoy. I'll catch you next time.